a QR code on the right, so please scan the QR code if you have any live questions for Spencer throughout his talk. Thank you.
Okay, everybody can hear me? Okay, great. Hello, my name is Spencer. I spend a ton of my time thinking about organizations, what they are, how they work, how they're structured, how they should be structured, and how they shouldn't be structured. And today, in this tiny amount of time, I'm going to talk about give a very, very stripped down version of a framework that I've been working on to better understand all of those things. And that framework is called trust zones. Every single slide that I'm going to show you has like 7 slides behind it that I've stripped out, so this is going to feel a little bit fast, and my hope is that you just come up to me and talk to me afterwards about anything that doesn't make sense, because a lot of it is going to be very, very simple. Okay, I am an agent. That means I'm an organization. That means I'm a human. That might mean I'm an AI agent. I have a goal. I cannot do all of it by myself. So I delegate. I delegate responsibilities and resources to some other agent. This makes me a principal. What does that mean? That means I now have a principal-agent problem. A principal can't be, like me, I can't be sure that my agent will act in my best interest. I can't be sure that my agent won't capture my resources, won't fulfill the task that I gave them. In other words, the principal-agent problem is that I don't trust my agent. 100% confidence in my agent means that I have full trust in them. That is typically not the case. But what techniques do I have to increase the trust in my agent, to increase my confidence in my agent? As a reminder, trust is a principle, my prediction that an agent will act in my best interest. So technique number 1, we can constrain what the agent can do. Constraints are proactive physical rules restricting what agents can do. They are proactive, they are physical, you cannot break them. They are exactly what blockchains and smart contracts are really great at. But constraints don't always work. Creative work requires flexibility that constraints intentionally limit. Agents need agency to do their best work on behalf of their principals. And that's often impossible to define everything what an agent will need to do upfront. But more flexibility for agents means more risk for principals like me. So what do? We can make additional rules and we can enforce them retroactively. This is technique number 2, accountability, otherwise known as retroactive enforcement. And this is this is the only tool that traditional organizations have. They don't have any other capabilities. Accountability always requires something at stake. Your freedom, your reputation, access to future opportunities, financial assets, DAO tokens, compensation, all of these things can be put at stake to hold you accountable later. Okay, technique number 3, we can create eligibility criteria that filter out agents that don't qualify. Eligibility criteria can include skill sets, credentials, reputation generally, and also credible commitments, and this ties back into accountability. Like I can stake something, such as DAO tokens, that can be slashed later, or my agent can stake something and I can slash them later if they're not doing a good job. So what are the techniques we have for increasing trust? One is we can play with the size or limit the size of the resources that we delegate to our agents. We can create constraints around what they can do with those resources. We can hold them accountable, and we can apply eligibility criteria. So imagine a container. In that container, if I want to delegate responsibilities, I can put them into the container. Same thing with resources, permissions, access controls, etc. I can create constraints as one of the ways that the container is defined, and I can create a filter, as in eligibility criteria, that changes, or that, let's see if we do, that allows only certain agents into the container. And then I can also apply accountability mechanisms or define the container with accountability mechanisms that can revoke the agent and hold them accountable if they're not meeting my needs or conforming to what I need. Inside the container, remember, in the container, the agent has full agency. They can do whatever they want within the constraints and the resource size and the everything that I've set up for that container. Inside the container, the agent has my full trust. So I call these containers trust zones. Trust zones are how principals like me can confidently delegate to agents to maximize their goals. With trust zones, we can also optimize delegation and operations within organizations because all of our techniques, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, are dials that we can turn up and down. We can create the same, we can create the same level of trust with different combinations of these properties, with different settings of these dials. So for example, with stricter eligibility criteria, we can decrease the number of constraints or the strength of the constraints. Or with stronger accountability mechanisms, we can give our agents more resources. Or in other words, we can give our agents more agency within the trust zone, within the container. We can hold trust constant while optimizing for cost and other scenario-specific factors. Traditional organizations cannot do this. All they can do is do things with accountability, retroactive enforcement. DAOs, though, DAOs can do everything. We can program trust zones with with access to the entire design space of all of these techniques. Another word, so this is what I'm going to leave you with here. I just have one more minute. Another word for a trust zone is a role. And when a principal delegates to an agent, they are assigning that agent to a role. When they're revoking that role, they are applying accountability. And finally, when we define roles on-chain with smart contracts, we can make the best organizations that have ever been created. Thank you.
Okay, we don't have any live questions rolling in, so I guess we can pass around the mic in the audience if anyone has a question.
So one issue that I think impacts ability for, or I guess one of this agents not performing what a principal has in mind, or one of these issues is scope creep, you know, like both in such a way that an agent's autonomy is limited because more things are expected of them, or there's, you know, things that are expected to complete a task that ends up being outside of a scope of things that they're authorized to do, or the not having, you know, the bandwidth to perform all the activities that are desired of them because of scope creep. I guess, yeah, I would be curious to know how such a kind of rigid but flexible ontology optimizes against that, because it's one of the main issues, obviously, in DAOs and our types of organizations.
I think it's a really big problem, and especially in traditional organizations where like your boss has all of the power and they can just like throw more stuff at you without you having much recourse. And we see a lot of that kind of in DAOs, but that's less like because the principal is like malicious and more just like weird, loose, strange lack of clarity. What I think is really important in DAOs and in lots of organizations is that both